Hello, everybody. My name is Walter Cotton, and I'm using this video to sound an alarm about a $3.4 trillion gold rush that's going on in Africa right now, that for whatever reason is being underreported to people of color. I recently had the blessing, dare I say luxury, of participating in a group of interviews with the Black Financial Channel, and a few days ago, I participated in a comprehensive master lecture at the Black Business School where we talked about empowering people of color to take advantage of this new market opportunity that's opening up in Africa. Well, the questions that came back from that lecture were concerning to me because it suggested that we're just not ready to take advantage of that opportunity. So I'm using this video to start my effort to educate and socialize both the opportunity that's available to people of color and the solutions, or at least one possible solution or system that you can use to take full advantage of that opportunity. So without further ado, let me kind of jump into like sharing with you what this real opportunity is, because right now there are other countries, whether it be the Chinese, whether it be the Russians, whether it be the Japanese, that are beating feet to this $3.4 trillion gold rush that's going on in Africa. And I fear for whatever reason, people of color are not being told about this gold rush. So I'm going to try to correct that challenge here today. Uh, I spent many years studying under the tutelage of a social philosopher. That's what I'll call him. His name is Dr. Wayne Dyer. And Dr. Dyer said, man, if you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at change. And when I look at the plight of our thought leaders in history, I see people like W.E.B. Du Bois giving us guidance on how we should be thinking as a people, not as our colonizers have taught us, or Kwame Nkrumah, who spoke decades ago about the importance of a unified Africa, or Dr. Henrik Clark, right? Dr. Henrik Clark, who told us that we can take control of our economic futures if we start manufacturing things. I can move forward to Dr. King's dream, or the more recent examples of assassinations that have occurred either literally or figuratively to our leaders. At the end of the day, the message that I'm saying to you, people of color who look like me, we have to stop allowing them to assassinate our leaders if we want to take control of the Black power that is available to us today. And what does that Black power look like? Well, I got to tell you, folks, at the end of the day, the African Union's decision to create a unified Africa has done, for the first time in my lifetime, something that empowers us with the ability to produce generational wealth. And what I'm going through the process of doing is empowering the other part of Africa, the diaspora, right? That part of Africa that Kwame Nkrumah tried to speak to when he said we need a unified Africa. And I'm empowering these young minds with a better believable dream. A better believable dream where they are lenders in the future and not borrowers. They are employers instead of employees. And I'm going to provide for you my perspective on a pathway that'll get you there. It's not the only pathway that will get you there, but it's a pathway that's based on a proven system that I was allowed to use to move over $19 billion worth of wealth from one community to another community. In that instance, it was the veteran community, the disabled veteran community, and they allowed me to become the spook that sat by the door and got all of the information on how to do it. And I am working diligently to make sure that people who wear my social uniform have access to it, because at the end of the day, I believe that when you sign up to a game, you've got to play by the rules of that game that are there when you signed up. But occasionally there is a change in the theater that allows you to change the game, much like the Iraqis had an opportunity after our shock and awe campaign when they came out with the purple finger voting for democracy. That was their opportunity to change the game because of a significant change that occurred in their theater. As it relates to people of color, we have had a number of changes in the theater over our lifetime that have given us an opportunity to react properly to those changes in the theater. And we've got to take culpability for our colonizers' ability to condition us to respond inappropriately to actions and behaviors that have been presented against us. And I don't have to tell you, we've had famous cases where we were beat down in the street or actually killed and murdered in the street, and our response was a public statement to ask, can we just get along? Well, in this particular season, folks, where our distant relatives over on the continent have finally come to a right-minded decision to unify Africa and make that continent's wealth available for people of color, descendants of the continent, it is our point in time for us to get our feces amalgamated and go and take our rightful place within our community. But in order to get there from here, right, we got to recognize that we're in an extreme time, right? These are times of extreme where people are kind of drowning in information while being starved for wisdom. In this season, one of the social scientists that I like to read, E.O. Wilson, suggests that the future is going to be driven, it's going to be run by synthesizers. And EL further defines synthesizers as people who can take the right information, pull it together at the right time, and think critically about it. And this last part puzzled me for a while until I figured out what he was saying, until I could smell what he was cooking. But he said that synthesizer can make important choices wisely. Let me give you an example of a modern day synthesizer who is the president of a country, Benin, in Africa. And the unique, right, critical decision, the important decision that he made wisely was to request recently, and we're talking about within days of this telecast, within days of this recording, that the French repatriate the more than $500 billion that they have been stealing out of the continent since the 60s. Let me say that again. Benin's president made the right-minded decision to request repatriation of billions of dollars that are being stolen out of the content on an annual basis. I'm encouraging you, members of the diaspora, to get your arms around this particular issue, because you know we live in a golden rule society. He who has the gold rules. And when you ask your opponent, when you ask your oppressor to start treating you fairly, start treating you equitably, you see some strange fruit growing on the tree, like we saw in the instance with Brother Gaddafi, right? Brother Muammar Gaddafi, when he made a simple overture that's similar to what our brother in Benin is doing right now. At the end of the day, folks, we're in extreme times, and we need our synthesizers like myself, like the president of Benin, to come to the table to point us in the right direction, because we have a colonized mind that we've been affected with, we've been infected with, and it motivates us to appreciate concepts and thoughts and philosophies that were driven by our oppressor. And here's one that I spent many years really, kind of wedded to, and that's Einstein's statement, which wisely and right-mindedly says you can't change the problems that were caused by your current pattern of thinking with your current pattern of thought. Well, when I let that rest in my spirit, I heard a quiet, still voice of our ancestors say, Walter, if you change the way you look at that, it'll change. And the voice came back to me with a message that said, the challenge that we're experiencing as a people is simply this. We are trying to change the problems that were caused by our oppressor strategies using our oppressor systems, because that's what we were well conditioned with as we went through their academic process. That's what we've been well programmed with that idiot box that we have in our house that we consume disproportionately. If we're going to break those bonds, folks, it's going to take synthesizers like myself coming in and holding lights and leading the way. And it's going to take your testicular fortitude to get up off the ground and empower yourself. Because, in point of fact, there has been a significant change in the domestic theater. I know about it because I had the pleasure of co-authoring it at the federal level, which actually takes the ability in contracting for people that wear your and my social uniform, and it moves that contracting playing field from an equality-based playing field to an equity-based playing field. And I'll tell you more about that if you surf out to my network. But that's not what this presentation's for, right? This presentation isn't designed to sell you anything, folks, because that's not my mission here. My mission is to empower you with the holistic ecosystems and the tools that you need to take your social status and weaponize it as a tool that allows you to transfer enough wealth into your family so that you can become the wealth generating agent of the 21st century. I have helped the disabled veteran business community achieve that to up to over $19 billion worth of wealth transfer. We have a system in place, and I've written trap doors in legislation that enables that for you, right? But what you have to do is you have to join me, right, with a new mindset. You have to be willing to become something that you haven't been before in order to take advantage of it. And we have to be willing to be brutally honest with ourselves. We have to be willing to be aggressively, radically transparent with ourselves, because in point of fact, a lot of us are walking around like the image that you see on the screen, right? We're coconuts. We're nice and brown on the outside, but inside we've got this soft, white, mushy interior that clouds our thinking. It's the thinking of our colonizer, which it doesn't empower us with the ability to appropriately respond to the question, what do you do when you wake up and find out that your opponent has been cheating at the game? When I asked one of my well-coconutted colleagues that recently, he immediately came back and said, well, you start cheating too. Well, that's a colonialist mindset. That's a colonialist idea or concept. When I let that thought rest in my spirit, I heard the quiet, still voice of our ancestors say to me, Walter, you have secrets that have been planted deep down inside of you that includes a natural intuition that allows you to overcome the clouded mind that your oppressor has left you with. All you have to do is have the unmitigated gall, the testicular fortitude to listen to the gifts, to the blessings that are inside you. So, what I'm doing here today with this particular broadcast is I'm launching the economic revolution that's going to be streamed. It's not going to be televised. And it's going to produce a rising tide that's going to take more than $300 billion worth of wealth. And that's right, folks. I said that with a B. And we're going to use that $300 billion to build a infrastructure that creates American Black-owned businesses that are able to interface with our African counterparts on the continent that are trying to unlock, they're trying to bring us home to take advantage of that $3.4 trillion economy before others do. If you want to learn more about the tools that you can weaponize to take advantage of this, or just more about what's going on in the African Union, I'm going to ask you to send me an email with your question. Don't hesitate with your question, because I believe that the only dumb question is the question that you refuse to ask. And for those of you who want to get some early bird benefits, you want to jump in and get involved right away, surf out to the MPU network, and you're going to find out more information about the movement and how you can get involved. At the end of the day, folks, let me say this directly. Let me open this up so that I can say this to you. At the end of the day, folks, it's in our hands. Nobody, especially our oppressors, are going to give us the tools necessary that allow us to take advantage of what our distant relatives on the continent have done. We're not talking about something that happened yesterday and you've got to get in line to hopefully get the crumbs. We're talking about something that's occurring real time right now. This environment, this $3.5 trillion economy is being opened up right now, and Africa and Africans are calling out to the distant relatives in the diaspora. And for those of you who are disabused of this idea, let me reacquaint you with the fact that when they say diaspora, they're talking about you. They're talking about me. We are the African diaspora, just like the Asians are members of the Asian diaspora, Italians, the Italian diaspora, Jewish, the Jewish diaspora. We are a part of the African diaspora. And this is the season that we need to embrace our rights. We need to embrace our heritage and go back home to the degree that we can to create an Africa that we can all be proud of and enjoy. Well, that's about all I have for this podcast, folks. I'm going to be putting these out on a continuous and ongoing basis because my mission is to create a rising tide of wealth transfer for people that wear my social uniform, that puts us in a position where we never have to worry about reparations or someone giving us 40 acres and a mule ever again. My name is Walter Cotton,
really.
and until next time, I'm saying I'm out.
Supreme Truth Quartet. You know what I mean? For the hip hop hippie clique. People in my hood, dang. People in my hood, dang. Y'all trying to kill me, but y'all can't. Y'all trying to kill me, but y'all can't. Trying to kill me, but y'all can't. Trying to kill me, y'all trying to kill me, but y'all can't.